I'm working on a 2.2 liter 2001 Toyota Camry in this video, and I'm going to show some tips on how to tear down the front end of the engine. I'm not going to go into tremendous detail on some of the preliminary steps. One would be to get this belt off, this drive belt off, and to do that you have to loosen the alternator bolts. There's one here, and around the other side, one here, and then you can turn this counterclockwise and it'll come down and you pull the belt off. You can remove it entirely by just taking these two bolts out if you're going to do the water pump. Another component on this Camry that needs to come out is this engine mount, this front engine mount, and there are just 3 bolts here, here, and here, and then you can just pull it right out. I did not support the engine on this. It doesn't seem like it would need it. Disconnect this wire, and then we'll get at the components that are more difficult, and I'm going to be spending some time on those. You can't really see it from here right now, but there's a bracket, an engine bracket in the front here. That's a little bit challenging down on the bottom, and I'm going to get into some of the toolage that will help get that job done. I'll also spend some time on the power steering pulley pivot bolt. A little tricky to get that off, and the crankshaft pulley bolt. Okay, so jack it up. The right front wheel needs to come off, left front not. Let's start with the 2 difficult bolts on this engine bracket. They're down lower, and what I'm doing is I'm going to figure out just what's tools. You can see from my graphic here what it looks like with it out, a little sneak preview. And getting at it is just a matter of getting the right tools in there. And I'm establishing that now. I've cut out a little piece of cardboard, and it's about 7 centimeters or 3 3/4 inches long. That's the gap there, the access. So we need to find tools that are within that range, a little bit shorter actually, so we have room to swing them. And if it's too long, it's going to bang into the wheel well. If it's too short, it's going to hit on the bracket. So we've got to get something between 5 and 6 centimeters wide, and that's what we'll look for now for tools. Okay, we found something that'll work here. You've got a 1/2 inch socket, measures 6.5 inches along with this breaker bar, about 6.5 centimeters. So it should fit in there in our gap. This breaker bar, it swivels. Let's try this out. Okay, that did fit in there nicely. And it broke it. Let's see if we can get the other one the same way. On that back one, kind of these thin ratchet, 1/2 inch ratchet seem to work pretty good. So I got them all loose. And you can't take them out very far with that. Okay, we're able to finger them off from there. I'm getting the back one first. Yeah, there it is. Once I broke this loose, 1/4 inch, 14 millimeter ratchet and socket seemed to work the best. Get it out all the way. And out comes the bracket. Okay, the screws are all the same on this bracket. Okay, we need to get the power steering pump belt out, and I'm using a 10 millimeter in here, just loosening the pivot bolt for starters here. There's a lower bolt, also 10 millimeter, using a 6-inch extension, 3/8 inch. We'll loosen that, and then we can move the pump to the right and take the belt off. Okay, the last cover screw is up under there, right in about here. So I'm just using a ratchet, 3/8 inch ratchet with a 10 millimeter on it. And there, it's loose. We should be able to take it out all the way with that. Okay, the cover's coming off. Just want to make note of this wiring harness, that it goes underneath the alternator bracket. Well, I thought it was coming right off. Okay, this is the way the screws were. This one is extremely long. Well, both of these are, for the positions that they're in. This one maybe should be this long, and this one's short. I'm going to lock this this crank with this means right here. Got a bar. Got to cut a little opening out with an angle grinder here for the nut. And these are the 6 millimeter screws. They're 40 millimeters long, and they're going to fit in the slots. on there. Okay, so we're all set to give this a try. I've got a small piece of 2x4 here. It's sitting across the axle and the tie-up, and 24-inch breaker bar. Let's give this a few pulls and see what happens. My only concern really is these 6mm bolts. To me, they're a little light in the loafers for this job, but we'll see if they hold. So this cutout in here that I made for the breaker bar, for the socket, it weakened the apparatus. It bent this big bar. So we gotta pull this out. We're gonna have to do the starter bump now. So we pulled the plugs. Don't want the car to start. We've got our bar in there. It's braced up against the lower control arm. I've got it wired in place. You want to keep it at a 90-degree angle. And it worked. Good deal. The harmonic balancer doesn't want to come off. So I'm using a couple of 6x pitch 1 70mm screws, long screws, along with this puller here. This is actually a steering wheel puller. Boy, does it work good on this application. There it comes. No need for anything like a tool here, a wrench. Nolo problemo. Let's take the lower timing belt cover off. So it's just 4 screws, 2 different lengths. Then you've got to work some wires that are attached to it. A couple of them in a couple of places. Another one down below. There's a view of the belt path. Take off this real thin washer. Anything you do on the front of this engine requires removing the timing belt. It makes sense to have the cam and crank at top dead center. So we're going to look at these timing marks before we pull the belt off. For clarity, I'm showing this with the belt already off. There's a small raised little knob that's on the engine that's going to line up with the crankshaft gear. There you can see it. Really hard to see with the belt on there. Once you know where it is, you can find it. And here it is on the gear. It's just a little depression there. And that's top dead center. That's the mark you want to shoot for. Line those two up and you're good. So make sure this hole here and this little tick mark are lined up on the cam. Okay, maintain those timing positions throughout now. Now we're going to take the tension off the belt so we can slip it off. I'm loosening up the tension roller, and then we'll force it down a little bit and be able to slip the belt off. There's a shot at the belt path from the top as an aid in putting it back together again. Let's start by slipping it off one of the smooth rollers. Then it'll release everywhere else. This belt is badly oiled up. Okay, thanks for watching. I made 4 more videos on this engine, including the timing belt reinstallation, the water pump, oil seals, as well as putting it back together again. So pick and choose which you might want to use.